You're listening to Inflow and On Fire, your weekly podcast companion for finding your flow and stoking your inner fire. I'm your host, Quinn Curtis, artist, mother of 5, and aspiring children's book author illustrator. Every month, our soulful discussions spark from a relevant fairy tale or myth. These help us better understand how to navigate our inner worlds and everyday lives so that we can live more joyfully, bring those big and beautiful dreams to life, and make the world a better place. Want to get the most out of this episode? Well, be sure to snag the free gorgeous study guide in the show notes that includes a written copy of the fairy tale or myth, soulful journaling questions, and other additional juicy resources. This episode is for you if you'd like to hear a woman's story of going after her big dream of buying and renovating a chateau in France, or if you're looking to find greater harmony with your own body and want inspiration on how to better nourish and take great care of yourself. Today's episode is a fun conversation with May Simpkin, a nutritionist and coach whom I had the great pleasure of meeting in France last September, where I attended a dreamy artist retreat at her chateau. May is such a gorgeous soul, and I always leave feeling so inspired anytime I get to connect with her, as I hope you will after this episode. This episode is part of our Selkie Myth series, where we're diving deep into issues around burnout and how to rekindle our fire and bring ourselves back to life. Be sure to stay to the end, where I'll be sharing this week's Inflow and On Fire Bright idea, which will help you integrate all this goodness into your everyday life. Let's get to my conversation with May. May, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Quinn. Oh, gosh, that's so lovely. It brings back some incredible memories. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'd love for us to just kick it off by giving a little bit of context about who you are and what you do, as far as, really looking at what your badassery is and what kind of magic do you bring into the world, Miss May?
Oh, thank you. Well, I suppose there's actually two sides to me, and having met you in France, I suppose I ought to start with that. Although there's another side of my life that is just, as big and features in exactly the same way. But in France, we own a chateau that we've had for about 20 years now. And it's somewhere that we have renovated, and we now run it as a holiday lettings property business. And we've recently started running retreats, and that's where, obviously you and I met. And I have to say, running retreats has been the most incredible part to how we've developed this business, because up until then we were just keeping our heads above water, but now we get to meet so many incredible people who are there to do incredible things. So probably more on that later. So that's sort of wearing my chatelaine hat. And then back in the UK, which is where I actually live, I am a nutritionist. And as a nutritionist, I help people to really harness the power of good food. And it sounds so cliche, but I'm a huge, huge believer in the fact that we have so much power through our diet and lifestyle to allow us to feel well, fire on all cylinders, and really make the most of our health, the opportunities, and also just make sure that we, think about the future so that we go into older age as healthy as we possibly can. And, I do all that through food and lifestyle and, just sort of really looking at all of that and making sure we get that right. So, yeah, I'm a nutritionist and I'm a chatelaine.
Thank you so much, May. I want to dive into so many aspects of this because I think it's just fascinating. First of all, how often do you meet people who are a chatelaine, right? That's a very uncommon thing. And that you have this whole other aspect of yourself. And so one thing that I just felt so inspired by spending that week with you at your chateau And May actually prepared and created all of the food for that week of the art retreat that I went to. And it was such beautiful food. Every single meal was both beautiful to the eyes and just all of your senses. And it also just felt so nourishing. And it had bread and cheese and fats and all sorts of things that typically I think we are afraid of as women, because we've heard so many messages about all of these things, right? And so each time when you would bring out food or you would talk about it, I just noticed, you were so quick to speak to how to really nourish ourselves and how to really take care of ourselves and the quality ingredients aspect of food as well. And so I would just love if you could speak for a minute about your overarching philosophy of how to nourish ourselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, nothing is off the table. And I think you've touched on that. There is absolutely nothing that should be banned. I know that we shouldn't be eating processed foods and sweets and anything that's high sugar. Yes, fair enough. But to think of these things as banned is, it's not good psychologically, because then all you think about is what you can't have. And my philosophy is very much about what you can have and should be having. But again, it's not just a case of being told, eat this, eat that, don't eat this, don't eat that, because we all know that, that's sustainable for a short period of time. And if you're very fired up and very motivated, you're going to do it. But it's not easy to stay that motivated if you feel that you are denying yourself. So my philosophy is, let us focus on what we can have and we should be having. So, for example, plenty of vegetables. I talk a lot with my clients about reaching 10 portions of vegetables a day. And people just really think, oh my goodness, that's just not attainable. But once I've worked with them and I've shown them how, if that's in your psyche, that's in your thinking, when you're shopping, when you're cooking, you will be surprised how many portions you can include at each meal. They don't have to be big. It's not only vegetables, it's, any high fiber food. So that does include beans and pulses and nuts and things like that. But it's actually quite easy, but it's only easy if it's in your thinking. If you know that's what you need to do, and you know that this is a positive thing, because you should be including that. So, you shouldn't be avoiding nuts because they're high in fat, because they're actually high in good fats. They're fats that we should be eating more of, but we should be eating them in moderation, combined with other foods as part of a balanced diet. So it's very, very much a positive angle. And then my thinking is, and I've seen this on a personal level with myself and certainly with many of my clients, when you are filling your plate and filling your meals and your day with food like this, there is no room for anything else, not only physically, literally on your plate, but also you are not craving. You're not sort of non-stop, not satiated and craving these foods, because actually you feel great, you feel good, you feel satiated. So that aspect of your life is just sorted. You're not sort of walking around with hunger pangs and looking at foods and thinking, I can't have that. You can have whatever you want. But actually, if you eat well, you will not crave the foods you don't want, and you will feel good. And you can then start focusing on every other aspect of your life, your job, your relationship, your children, your busy life, your hobbies. It's just not held back by all the things that you are denying yourself. So it's really that positive mentality that I really like to focus on. And, in France, when you were there for an art retreat, but it's my job to feed you. And I wanted you to get the most out of your experience. I don't want you going from meal to meal thinking, I can't wait till the next meal because I'm so hungry, or, that wasn't great, I hope there's something better. What I want is for you to feel, gosh, that was really delicious. That was so balanced. I've never felt so good. My gut feels good. My head feels good. My energy levels are good. And then you can just throw yourself into everything else that, you want to throw yourself into. So yeah, that's my approach to health and nutrition.
Oh, thank you. I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, how did this become like such a rebellious act in a way of like really going after feeling good in your body and nourishing yourself? It's bonkers that it is actually kind of counterculture, especially for women. We're so used to withholding pleasure from ourselves and like almost feeling virtuous about that. Instead of everything I'm hearing from you, it just feels so laced with self-love and compassion and like really showing up for yourself. Have you seen that, or what comes up for you?
Totally. I mean, I really think it is the ultimate act of self-care and self-love to nourish your body with good stuff. Just keeping it as simple as that, whether it's good food, whether it's good exercise, whether it's good relationships, good thinking, you're reading good stuff, you're watching good stuff. I just think it is the ultimate act of self-care. And as women, we are so resilient. We have to be, don't we? Life, throws a lot of curved balls at us. We have to be resilient, and we are, because quite often we are primary carers of children, little ones that are looking out for you. We'll be in big jobs where, we almost want to overprove ourselves. And sometimes you can't be seen to be indulging in that self-care and prioritizing something other than the children, the job, the relationships, etc. But honestly, I really think it needs to be flipped, because if you are resilient, truly resilient internally, you can actually deal with anything. And, that life will continue to throw curved balls. Therefore, you have to continue caring for yourself, loving yourself, nurturing yourself with good food. Fundamentally, it starts from there. Because if you're not eating good food, the science, and I won't sort of go too much into this because this is not a sort of nutrition discussion, but the science will actually show you that if you don't eat good food, you will end up feeling anxious, depressed, fidgety, dizzy, lightheaded, all of those feelings that are very difficult to overcome. And it means you go through your day feeling like that. Which, again, women are resilient. We will get through our day. But wouldn't it be nicer to get through our day not feeling like that and feeling energized and buoyant and, as I said before, firing on all cylinders? It's a much nicer way to get through your day. And that's what I always aim for when I'm working with my clients. So, yeah, not denying yourself anything. In fact, let's just focus on what we need to add in, and the rest will take care of itself.
And I know that everybody listening is going to be coming from a lot of different lenses. And I know you help a wide variety of people with this type of approach. But I think an objection maybe coming up in some people's mind might be, assuming that you've always been this way, and so this is easy for you, or assuming that like, oh, you've just always cared for yourself and you don't understand like what it's like to really be struggling, or, what about money and how you do this? So I know this has probably not always been your thing, and it's been a growth journey, but could you speak to some of those objections? Because I would love to just open up the hearts of those who are listening so that they're really understanding and feeling how this can apply to them wherever they're at in their journey.
Absolutely. And I will say, I'll hold my hands up now and say, there are phases right now where I agree with all of what you've just said. I can be out of my routine, I can be on holiday, there's been a lot of festivities, and I'm just not able to do what I want to do. I'm not able to exercise well, I'm not able to cook in my own kitchen, I'm eating out all the time. But honestly, I feel it and I don't enjoy it. And so for me, the main thing that I focus on is getting back onto it as quickly as I can. So for those who think that they can't even get there in the first place, let me say one thing. It is hard work. And this is the problem with my work. I don't have a magic pill. I can't just say, here's a pill. All of a sudden, you're not going to crave these things. All of a sudden, you're going to be able to cook incredible food. You're going to be able to, focus on as much exercise as you want, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, what I offer and the service I offer is hard work, which is why I have to guide people and teach people and give them the tools and the understanding to be able to do that. But it is a question, and this really, really does work, of simple steps, one at a time. So rather than overhauling your diet and removing everything that you love and everything that you know how to cook, etc., what you do is you add in one new thing, and one other thing will fall by the wayside naturally. If you're not able to exercise for, an hour a day, you don't need to do it. You can do 3 or 4 lots of 10 minutes. 10 minutes could be walking around the block. 10 minutes could be, picking up some weights at home and just, moving around with them. It could be so many different things. And sometimes people think, unless I've really gone the whole hog, it doesn't count. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it absolutely does count. And it's so important to think that, because I think we just put more pressure on ourselves by saying it doesn't count. It does count. It absolutely counts. Imagine if you're sitting on the couch or you're up doing a few arm exercises while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, for example. How can it not count? It will count. And if you have that in your mind, so, when you're parking somewhere, you park just a little bit further, so you've got a tiny bit extra to walk. Perhaps one time you don't take the car at all because it's a feasible journey. You just allow extra time. These are the types of things that I'm talking about. It's small, simple steps that then become your norm, and you build on that new norm, which is at a higher level of self-care than perhaps it was before. And then it's just manageable, because suddenly you'll look back in 6 months' time and go, my goodness, do you remember when I would never have considered walking that 10-minute journey? Do you remember when I never exercised at all? Do you remember when I never ate any green vegetables? And now look at my plate, because you start reaping the rewards, and that is a huge incentive. You feel good. Whether it's mentally, psychologically, or physically in your energy levels, you feel good. That is motivation enough. And then if you do start regressing and going back to the old habits that didn't serve you, you feel that. And you think, oh my goodness, why am I doing that? I do not want to feel like that anymore. I want to feel good like I did when I was doing this and doing that. And so it's... try not to add this in to your list of priorities and list of things that you need to do. Try and just let it evolve naturally by learning what it is you need to do. In other words, don't follow fads and trends and learn things that are wrong and actually sabotaging you and making your life harder. Try and find people that are speaking sensibly and are not following trends and are really going back to the science and the evidence, so that if you do make changes, they're changes that are worth making, and you're not going to have to go back and go, gosh, I did that 10 years ago because they were telling me that was good. And now this is, now that myth has been debunked. And I've wasted all my time and energy getting nowhere for the last 10 years. And that's, I see that a lot, particularly with things like fats and, sort of that whole, for example, fat-free revolution generation. All those people who weren't eating fats were really making life very difficult for themselves. Now the thinking is, no, you must be eating fats, but there's a lot of people still have that sort of relic of information in their heads. And it's things like that make life harder. So, yeah. Education, motivate yourself with small steps, and just make sure you know what it is you need to be doing and have that as your aim. You don't have to get there in one step. You do it in lots of small steps, and it all counts.
I love what you're speaking to, because it seems like such a concept we talk a lot about on this podcast of living the way that you want or creating that life that you want is about the practice of it and not about hitting some arrival point. And so that is definitely an aspect where if you've been going after, well, eat things that help me lose weight, it's like this arrival point someday in the future where you've lost weight and then suddenly you could be happy, right? It's crazy up thinking. And so I love how you're speaking to the practice of it and that the practice builds on small things. Like, for example, we talk about this a lot at my house with my son, who's an incredible concert pianist. And he didn't start that way. Like, nobody starts that way. And you learn the first few notes and you learn a couple things, and then it takes time over years. But as long as you are committed to the practice of wellness or committed to the practice of feeling good, I think that's an important aspect. The other thing that I think is really beautiful in what you're saying is, and just something maybe that I've been kind of my ears perking up to a lot lately, is just how the term self-care has kind of become almost like this luxury idea. Like, oh, we give self-care to us as a bonus, like it can only be the cherry on top of our life, instead of really understanding that the more you actually nurture and support yourself feeling good on all levels, that just makes life easier to continue to feel good and create great outcomes. So just curious about your thoughts about those pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way I look at it is you are bolstered, you boost your ability to cope by focusing on these things. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you boost your ability to cope? Because we have so much to cope with. I often look at my day-to-day life and think, thank goodness I live and eat well, because I don't think I'd be able to achieve all of this. I don't think I'd be able to do it. And I know for a fact when I'm not doing it, because of all those scenarios that I described earlier, I'm not able to cope. And I'm angry, I'm screaming a lot, I'm not achieving very much, and it's not fun. It's not fun. So self-care can be, it encompasses so much. It can be, you're having a luxury bath with a candle and lovely essential oils. That's one form of self-care. But another form of self-care is going out there, associating with people that are like-minded, that you want to be with, that are nurturing you, that you come away feeling good. You don't come away going, I've just wasted half an hour of my life having coffee with this person. Honestly, it sounds brutal. I don't do that anymore. I really don't. I make every excuse under the sun because I don't have time to give that half an hour. However, if it's somebody that I know, I'm going to go and I'm just going to chat with normally, not even a heavy conversation, but I'm going to come away uplifted, having learned something, having been exposed to something, having been able to share because they're like-minded. I come away bouncing. I think, oh my God, it was so good to see her or him, or it was so good to go there. And you know that feeling, don't you?
Yeah.
When, you meet these people and they're in your life, but then all the other types are as well. And one thing about getting older is I've become a lot more brutal, and that self-confidence is a good thing, because I think, well, I know what I like. I know what I don't like. My capacity is more limited. I don't have that ability to just throw myself at everybody willy-nilly, just, because I can. Now, actually, I value being on my own. I value having that time with nobody around me. I value going a walk on my own where I can think, evaluate. I'm not distracted. Sometimes, I just walk, no music, no podcast, no phone calls, nothing. I value that now. Whereas, when I was younger, I would sort of feel a bit sorry for myself. I got nobody to walk with or do anything. Whereas no, now that's just not the case. So, there are so many forms of self-care, and you don't have to do them all. you can do, which is great. Over, not all in one day, obviously, but you can sort of encompass all of those into your life. But you really shouldn't see it as a treat and something that is a luxury. It's a necessity. It really is.
Preach, May. I love this so much. I think a piece of what you're speaking to too is just so much courage and like standing up for yourself, standing up for what you want, and making some of those brave choices. And I'd love for you to tell everybody a little bit about that brave choice that it was to change your life really drastically at the age of 44 and move into this new career path. Can you give us a little bit of that story and what that was like?
Yeah, sure. So I was at the stage in my life where my children were 10, 12, and 14. I have 2 boys and a girl. And, I mistakenly, I now know, thought my job is done. They can fend for themselves. They go to school all day. I don't really have much to do now. So, you know what? I'm going to get bored. I need to do something. Little did I know, I actually had the trickiest years ahead, those teenage years with 2 boys, and a girl. I had no idea, which is probably just as well. And anybody listening to this with children that haven't got to teenage years, just ignore what I've just said. And go in with this really lovely, wholesome attitude that your job is done. And so I decided I wanted to go back to studying. And you know what? I didn't overthink it. And I think that's something that I'm really grateful for. I didn't sit there and think, what subject shall I do? Where is it going to lead me? Is it worth doing? Am I going to be able to work with it? All those sort of sensible things that I possibly should have thought about. Actually, there was just one decision. What do I love doing? What is it I'm really interested in? And I was always, my background, my very, very, very sort of early background was in health clubs. So I've always been interested in health. And then when I had my children and my family, I love to cook. So I'm always interested in cooking. I'm always interested in feeding them well and learning about it. But I had never had the opportunity to, my very simplistic view of, learn what this vitamin does for that and why I should be having that vitamin over that vitamin, etc. And I always found myself, reading voraciously about things like that, but never quite understanding it. So when I went back to studying, I thought, you know what? I love nutrition. I love health. And I'm just going to learn it. If, worst case scenario, I can just feed my family even better. And best case scenario, it leads on to much more. I had no idea what that much more would be. Well, I was so happy I did that. I had to go right back to basics. My first course that I had to do was anatomy and physiology. So, I had to learn about what's going on in the body, how the body works. I honestly, I will always remember my classes used to be on a Monday, all day Monday. So I would sort the kids out and, I had all day. I used to get butterflies in my stomach on a Sunday night of excitement that I was going to study and I was going to learn more about these incredible bodies of ours. I did that. And then, one thing led to another. I then went on to study nutrition on a diploma level. And then I continued and then studied at master's level, because I remember finishing and thinking, you know what? I think I could work in this. I still have no idea what I'm going to do. But the last thing I want is for anybody to turn around and say, well, actually, what does she know? She's not actually that highly qualified. And so I thought, you know what? I'll just take that one away and go and study at a higher level. And that really was the best thing for me, because I had no idea at the time. I thought I knew a lot about nutrition, but when you study at a higher level, so for me, that was a master's level. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in the UK, you do a degree. So you can do a diploma, which is sort of one level. Then the next level up would be a degree. And then the next level up would be a master's. I had no idea that by studying a master's, I would delve so deeply into the topics of nutrition and health and the way your body works that I became really clear in my head about it. So I was confident. It meant that when somebody asked me a question, I could confidently answer because I knew to a much deeper level how everything was working. But here's the thing, it wasn't only being able to answer the question, I also had the confidence to say, do you know what, I'm not sure how that mechanism works, or I'm not sure how that would work. Let me go and research that. Let me find out. But I had no problem saying that because this was not something very basic. And I could explain the basics, but because I want to be really clear about the detail, when you study at a higher level, you have that new level of confidence, which I hadn't really bargained for. And I have to say, I am really grateful for, because it makes life so much easier for me. I'm not worried. I'm not anxious about talking to people. I feel I know my stuff. I've studied for 5-6 years and I'm still studying. I'm still reading voraciously, researching, discovering things, because that's the thing about the world of nutrition. It changes and moves on all the time. So yeah, age 44, I go back to studying, and literally one thing leads to another. And now I'm working as a nutritionist. I see private clients. I work with brands. I run health retreats. Never, ever did I imagine that would be the case. But wow, I am so grateful that is the case, because I have no idea what I would be doing now otherwise.
It's like it made your world so much bigger and expanded your possibilities. And I really appreciate what you're saying about really investing in your education to the point of that level of mastery and confidence, because especially in the online business and marketing world that I come from, there's a lot of this push of take wherever you're at, claim that you're the expert on it, go out and start judging people for it. And I think, of course, there's aspects of that are probably really healthy and supportive, but then I see a lot of women get knocked down in those phases and they take it so personally that and then they never keep learning and pursuing. And so when you really understand, hey, I'm passionate about this, I'm going to put in the continual investment, and maybe you could be doing work along the way, not saying you have to wait to have all the certifications. That's perfectionism as well. But I just really honor and appreciate what you're saying about investing in your own education to the level where it all felt very clear in your mind of how it all works and how to really advise someone. And I feel like as women, here again, a layer where we just sometimes don't allow ourselves the ability to invest that far, even feels like a luxury maybe to go that far, when this is maybe being very sexist, but it feels like in our society, you don't hear as many men who are just like, I just woke up one day and I decided to be an expert about this. And like there's not this continual drive or questioning yourself that you see in women to like figure everything out before they can do anything, or hold themselves back and feel like they'll never figure it out, so they just don't start. So I just was inspired by your journey there, May.
Yeah. And there's sort of one thing I want to add to that is that as you keep building on that knowledge and you build on your confidence, the passion will come out. And then you're speaking from a place of passion, not from a fiery place of competitiveness, of eagerness to get to the top. Actually, you're not competing with anybody. There is plenty of work out there for everybody. There are so many other nutritionists. I'm not the only UK nutritionist. I don't care about them. I learn from them. I watch them. I see what they're doing. But I'm me, and that's because I've developed that passion that actually nobody can take my passion and show off the way I speak, because it's inherent in me. And it's inherent in me because I genuinely am passionate about what I do. And I'm genuinely passionate because I have taken the time to nurture that in myself. So when you speak from that point, that platform of passion rather than aggression and competitiveness, it comes across different. And I've noticed that that's been a big thing for me, because actually I'm not competitive. I love seeing what other people are doing, and they're probably maybe earning more money than me. They're seeing more clients, but actually I'm doing stuff I love that fits in with my lifestyle, that works for me. And you know what? If it didn't, maybe I would do things differently. And because I would need to, if I needed to, I would. I know I would, because I've done that all the way through my life. So I just sort of look, and if it feels good and I'm passionate, 99% of the time you are on track. But you don't always feel like that. So listen to those messages as well, and, act on them.
Yes. Yeah. It's like I would always say in the branding and marketing space that there is no competition in your genius zone. Like what you're speaking to is this space of when you're really in your zone, in flow, on fire, even with what you're offering in the world and what lights you up. It doesn't matter what other people are doing. And like you said, nobody can take that from you and like duplicate it and make it work. So I just really hope that everybody listening is getting really fired up and inspired by this idea of recognizing that the more you invest in yourself and in feeling good and in pursuing the path that really lights you up, the more you reach this space where there really isn't competition. It's not an issue.
No.
And you just shine and serve from the space that you really love and that lights you up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the way you've just described it as well. And it's nice to see how that crosses over different professions, industries, and things like that, because of course it does. Everyone can be, the best version of themselves in any space. And you've just got to really believe that, and just bat away the noise that can stop you from believing that. And that noise can also just be your commitments during, phases of your life. But just remember that those phases move, and, what was the tricky phase, a few years ago is over. You might be in a different tricky phase, and in the future, you'll be in another tricky phase. But what was causing you anxiety at one point will not cause you anxiety at a later stage. And, hopefully, I'm obviously speaking very generally, but I think it's a positive way to think, because otherwise you can be brought down by it all. And that's debilitating. And that's such a shame. So, I understand how that happens. And it certainly happens with me when I feel that I can't move forward because of this or because of that. And it's dragging on. I mean, for me, menopause is a big thing. Oh my goodness, that, you're going one step forward and menopause is bringing you 10 steps back. But you've just got to keep hauling forward, keep doing it. Now I feel as though I'm through. And I just think, well, I'm glad I didn't stop, because actually I'd be at a very different starting point now. So I'm glad I just kept hauling myself through. I lowered my standards, lowered what I wanted to achieve. And, luckily I was able to do that. I put myself in a position that I was able to do that, and just tried to get through it. But I didn't stop moving forward. And I suppose that's what makes it harder. But now that I'm through to this stage of it, I'm really glad I didn't, because you've got so many years to live, and if you stop too early and you stop too soon with that drive and ambition, it's really hard to regain it. So you've always got to be finding things that keep that fire in your belly, and it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be indulging yourself in a hobby, or what your kids are up to, or traveling, or whatever. But whatever it is, it needs to be keep you inspired, so that you can keep moving forward in every other aspect of your life. And yeah, that's sort of my take on that.
Whew. Well, this has been such an inspiring and energizing conversation. I hope each of our listeners are feeling some of that fire in their belly and excited to reevaluate what's possible for themselves and their life and their health. Is there any parting thoughts that you might have for everybody of just how to move forward, or anything you're hoping they walk away with today?
Oh, well, I hope, I hope they do move forward with positivity and really that feeling that everything is there on the table for you. You just need to be selective. And I would add, be selective. Don't just go with anything just because you think you want to do it, or your friend's doing it, or someone suggests it. Be selective and don't choose until something really does come out there and speak to you. But always be on the lookout. Don't let opportunities go past you. So, if you're on the lookout, opportunities won't go past you. And it's funny how that works. And, I've spoken to so many people who have that attitude. And what it is that you are receptive. And I think that is a big part of this. Be receptive. And if you're receptive, things that non-receptive people have going past them, it'll just go straight past them because they are not receptive. Receptive people will have things going past them and go, oh, I could try that. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I could go there. And then you just never know what one thing will lead on to. So don't overthink it. Don't have that end plan, and just go with it and go with your gut. Listen to your gut. Your gut is often right. But go with it, even if it's out of your comfort zone and it's not what you thought you would be doing or thought you enjoyed, just go with it and be receptive. So I suppose that's a parting thought.
I love it. Thank you so much, May, for joining us. This whole conversation was so juicy and inspiring. I especially loved where May talked about the importance of nurturing and keeping that fire in our belly all throughout our lives. Her passion for nourishing our bodies always gets me so excited as well. As promised, today's In Flow and On Fire bright idea is to ask ourselves, how can we better nourish or find that fire in our belly? So maybe as you were listening, you were thinking of certain foods or drinks that you'd like to incorporate more into your diet or let go of out of your diet and replace with even more nourishing things. Or maybe it inspired you to go after a creative project or something that's really exciting to you that you'd like to try. Whatever it is, take a minute and just write it down right now. What's that one thing that you'd like to shift or bring into your life that would help nurture that fire in your belly? It's so important. Such a little bit of clarity can bring so much life and vitality and clarity into our lives. So I highly encourage you to take a quick minute and just make sure you're on track and you've got that clarity today. To connect with May more or get to know her better, feel free to check out her website, maysimpkin.com, or connect with her on Instagram at May Simpkin Nutrition. In Flow and On Fire is a weekly podcast to help you find your flow and stoke your inner fire so that you can live more joyfully, create those big and beautiful dreams, and make the world a better place. Living in Flow on Fire isn't a destination, it's a daily practice. We make this show every week to help support you in that practice with deep inspirational insights and real-world examples of other soulful people who are leaning into this journey also. To better support your In Flow On Fire practice, we send you each week's episode via email direct to your inbox so you never miss a beat. Go to quincurtis.com/email to sign up and stay inspired. Also, when you sign up, you'll get access to my free Living in Flow and On Fire guide. A step-by-step path to find your flow and stoke your fire today. Sign up at quincurtis.com/email to amp up your inflow and on fire lifestyle with me now. This has been another episode of In Flow and On Fire, a weekly podcast cheering you on to follow your heart and come more alive. It can be tough to stay in flow and keep your creative fires burning bright, so please take this podcast with you on your journey. Subscribe so we can keep fanning your flames and cheering you on each week. If you got something out of this episode and haven't already left us a review, please do. Positive reviews really help other people who need this to find it also. I'm your host, Quinn Curtis, artist, mother of 5, and aspiring children's book author illustrator. I'm here creating this show because I know just how hard it can be to even just stay excited and engaged in our everyday lives. With so many demands for our time and attention, it can be especially tricky to prioritize those nudges from our heart and soul. However, the costs like depression, disconnection, anxiety, overwhelm, loneliness, lack of fulfillment, and so much more are really high when we don't. So every week I gather soulful stories, inspiring ideas, and incredible people to help us stay connected to our inner compass and remember what's most important. Ultimately, I created this show because I need those regular reminders too, but my hope is it can also inspire and help you to keep going and bring more of your magic that's inside of you out into the world. We need it. Special thanks to Avesa and Maddie Love for our theme music. Thank you so much for listening, friend. In between now and when we connect again, stay in flow on fire. It matters and you matter.